Welcome to the premiere outing of the Michael Savage Sabbath. Now you may say, are you a preacher? No. Are you a holy man? No. I'm like everyone else, been searching from the day I could think about the meaning of it all. How about you? Have you been searching for it? Now let me set my camera up. I do these things alone, and I will be with you for either 5 minutes or an hour, depending upon where this goes. So let me begin with this. I don't carry it with me every day, but I've had it with me for many decades. I've had this with me in Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Marquesas, some of the rarest corners on earth. What is it? It's a little compass, a cheap little brass compass. Why do I carry it? Well, for one, it's good to know where north, east, west, and south is, isn't it? And most of us are adrift on planet Earth. We have no idea where the north, east, west, or south is anymore. We're lost. You can lie to yourself if you want, or you could tell me you're not lost, in which case you don't need to listen to me. You're going to learn nothing that you already know. And let me say this. A wise prophet once said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. So if you wish to cast the stones of cynicism and sarcasm at me, go ahead. I don't care. You'll be the loser, not me. Why am I doing this? I was thinking about this for a long time. I've always thought about doing this. All the years I was in radio, 26 years in the radio. But long before that, all the years that I spent collecting medicinal plants, doing things I had no idea why I was doing them. What was I, a guy from New York? What the hell was I doing on these islands, in villages, at night, with all African, they weren't African American, they were Fijian, Melanesian, that's the correct word, men. What was I doing there? The only white guy in a straw hut, listening to them, drinking kava kava. What was I looking for? What am I still looking for? Do you have an idea what you're looking for? And how do you find it? Now, we've all been searching. I was searching around today for things to bring to this first Sabbath, Savage Sabbath. So I found this book in the back room, Aldous Huxley, Doors of Perception in Heaven and Hell. This was a big hippie book in the 60s because he used mescaline, mushrooms, to find heaven. I've never used mushrooms. I do cook with shiitakes, I must admit. But they don't change my consciousness at all. I do them for the health benefits, the antioxidant benefits. I'm not looking for a change in my consciousness, if you don't mind. It's hard enough living as it is. You want to smoke marijuana? You want me to get started on that? You'll regret it in your lifetime. And I'm not going to go there. The psychosis that is emerging in America today is largely due to the epidemic of cannabis. We're not going into that today. Ask any emergency room doctor about the admissions, the overwhelming admissions of people who are going insane from these cannabis overdoses. You watch the show Intervention? I do. Why do I watch the TV show Intervention? Because I see people on meth, on heroin, on alcohol, and you see them as little children, some of them coming from really decent middle-class families, some not, but some do. Cheerleaders, football players, then they either have an accident, they take oxy, and then they get hooked, and then you see them a total wreck. We're only one step away, all of us, from a disaster. Last night, I watched boxing matches for about 3 hours. I was in one of those moods. Stayed home, got takeout, had a friend come over with takeout. And I watched Danny Garcia, who had not been fighting for a couple of years. I grew up watching boxing matches. I say, how do you come to watch boxing? And what does this have to do with a Savage Sabbath sermon? I don't know, you'll decide. So the main event was Danny Garcia, who'd been out of the ring for a couple of years because of personal reasons. I don't know much about him. And he was fighting a man equally matched. The guy looked like an Aztec warrior, and they were pounding and pounding each other for round after round after round. I don't know how they do it. But something happened at the end of this boxing match that I had not seen ever happen before. which was after Danny Garcia was announced the winner, which he clearly was. The other guy was phenomenal, but he didn't win. Danny Garcia came up to the announcer. They asked him questions, and he started to cry to the world about his anxiety and depression and how he had to overcome it, even to get into the ring that night. So I said, holy God, what a great man this is. The ultimate macho man, the warrior, crying. So many of you, when I put it on Twitter, acted like you were tough guys, saying, I like tough guys to be tough. I don't like them to cry. Fine, I get the stereotype. But I've had friends who are combat veterans who have told me stories that are similar. The strongest, hardest men on earth who've been in combat many times, killed men, seen their friends killed, breaking down in tears when their dog died, or breaking down in tears when their wife left them. Broken, gone. Men break, men cry, men get depressed, men are filled with anxiety, especially in the world that we have today where our world is being attacked and shattered. I'm going to try not to steer into politics because I do that with my podcasts and my appearances on Newsmax TV. I toe the line. I don't want to go into politics right here, but many of us are broken right inside, like shattered, not broken. And maybe you're drinking more, maybe you're eating more, maybe you're running more, maybe you're doing the stuff that you know you don't want to do more. Why? Because we're living in very difficult times right now. Our world is being taken apart by the joints. They're taking America apart, joint by joint. We don't know if it will survive this. We have the most corrupt administration in American history. I don't have to name names. We'll say both sides of the aisle. The war in Ukraine against Russia, a proxy war against Russia. Now they want a proxy war against China. Why? Weapons, manufacturing, trillions will be made by Republicans and Democrats. And we, the people, were never asked to vote. Do you want to send $100 billion to Ukraine? Do you want to be engaged in a proxy war with Russia? We're all on the side of little Ukraine against big Russia. But you need to know a little history about it. You need to know about John McCain. You need to know about Ms. Nuland, who went over there in 2013 and caused a revolution against the duly elected president of Ukraine. You got to know who Zelensky is. And I don't want to tell you any of this now. But this is scaring everybody because Russia is a thermonuclear power, in case you've forgotten. And almost everything you see about the war is a lie. There's absolutely no truth about what you're seeing about this devastation in Ukraine. All you see are the destroyed buildings and 9 million people thrown out of their homes, scattered to the four winds of the earth, mainly to Eastern European nations, which is horrible. How did it start? You'll have to study a little bit more. You'll have to look back to 2013. You'll have to study the Maidan Revolution. You'll have to see what John McCain did. You'll have to see what Virginia Nuland is still doing to understand these things. But the point is, Russia's a thermonuclear power. And those of us with consciousness understand what that actually means. They're not a rap star with a fake gun in their hips. They're not a punk on the streets of New York beating up an Asian woman because they're utter cowards. And we fear this could get worse. It hasn't gotten any better. You keep pushing Russia into a corner, what do you think they're going to do? You keep pushing the big guy like these idiots around Biden are doing, sneering at Putin, mocking the Russian people, spitting on Russian people. 50% of the world is not in favor of Ukraine, by the way. You don't know that. So what am I saying? You keep pushing Putin into a corner, he'll launch a thermonuclear weapon. But it won't be against us. It won't be. I had a nightmare about a week ago, which I tweeted about. I saw London on fire. That's just a nightmare, a vision. Your young men shall see visions. Your old men shall dream dreams. Read your Bible. So I had a vision. Even though I'm supposed to be dreaming dreams, I'm still having visions because inside I'm still that young man having visions. I'm a young boy inside. My body got older, but I haven't gotten older inside. It's a strange thing. I once met somebody when I was in my 30s. He was a very famous individual at the time. and I was a young writer trying to be a writer, whatever. And I asked this then 50-year-old, what's it like to get old? Do you feel differently? He said, no, inside I'm the same. So our physical entity ages, but our soul, which, if it is still intact, is ageless, which brings us to today. Welcome to the Michael Savage Sabbath. So I have some props I brought for you today. For example, I don't know if can you see the 10 Commandments behind me? I don't even know. These guys here. Yeah, of course you could see them. You'll have to focus in. So I'm going to give you a little lecture for a minute. What are the 10 Commandments? Why am I even showing it to you? What did you want, some kind of hippie sermon? You're going to get it all, because I'm going to also talk, whether today or tomorrow, about effigies, deities, carvings like this Mesoamerican masterpiece. I've spent years not only studying and collecting ethnographic art, Fiji, before it was Fiji, before it became what you know it as, before it was Fiji water. But not just Fiji. We're talking about New Britain, New Ireland. We're talking about the far reaches of the South Pacific. I have collections going back 50 years of the carvings. And I was going to do a show in another property I own with them behind me, but I didn't get there today. And maybe tomorrow I'll do one from there and explain these carvings, because you can feel the spirit of the individual in those carvings. These are not tourist items. You can feel the spirit in the carving. If you have an eye for art, if you can tell a difference between Drek and art, when you look at these carvings, you can tell a difference between them and a fake headdress worn by Elizabeth Warren, for example. Every culture on earth, every society on earth has sought a deeper meaning. What is the meaning of life? What am I doing here? Where am I? Wow. If you stop and think about it, what are you doing here? Are you here to just have fun? Some people say yes, it's to have pleasure. There's a name for that, and that's fine. We all need pleasure, because without pleasure, life becomes almost impossible. But is that the sole reason for existence? I've heard every reason under the sun. Here's a little amulet, a Yemenite amulet I bought in Jerusalem 50 years ago. Why am I showing this to you? Does this have power? These Hebrew words, I've had them translated. What does this Yemenite amulet mean? Gee, I thought Jews didn't believe in effigies. Oh no? What else don't you know about Jews? About as much as you don't know about Christians. There's much more to everybody in every religion than you may think. Which leads me back to this. The core of America is fundamentally religious. This was founded by the colonists who took the land from the Native Americans. We'll go into that at another time. Through conquest. But before you go on and say, aha, he's a leftist, he agrees with us, pause, because I will tell you something you haven't read in any books. Every nation on earth was founded in blood. Just never forget what I taught you just now. The next time a leftist moron tells you America's a racist, imperialist nation, every nation on earth has been founded in blood. Oh, even Denmark, yeah, Scandinavian nations. Those nice Scandinavians being overrun by Muslims, those nations have been taken over by radical lesbians who have destroyed their own nation in the name of the European Union. Those nations who've attacked their strongest men and turned them into the filth of the nation. The men, the boys who were the descendants of the Vikings have been reduced to a subspecies by these spiteful radicals who have taken over their countries and are risking the decimation of their own nation. Again, I don't want to go into politics, but you know, everything comes and goes. It all flows, it ebbs and it flows. This is my first Savage Sabbath. If it goes the way I want it to go, when I watch this at another time, I will do another one. I'll do it every Saturday or every Sunday, depending upon what I decide to do at a certain time right here on YouTube. A very important friend of mine suggested I do this. He said, I know you very well. I know that you love nature. I know that you spend a lot of your time looking at not so much the seagulls, but the pelicans. Whenever my mind goes to places I don't want it to go to, I go out and I watch the pelicans fly by. And I see things that are hard to describe, but I could describe them like a haiku if you want to put it in those simplistic terms. Watch a flock of pelicans flying over the water. Watch them, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and they keep changing point. Each one, they keep changing, so that there's a reason for it. It's because the ones flying behind the slipstream of the one in front expend less energy. The ones in front have to spend more energy. The ones behind have to expend less energy because the air is flowing for them in a different way than they would against the air without the pelican in front of them. So how did they learn this? Did they learn it in school? Yeah, they have their own schools. Their mothers and fathers are homeschoolers. The pelicans' mothers and fathers are homeschoolers. They teach their children. They don't turn them over to a government pelican school to teach them to hate themselves as pelicans and to take drugs and to take a boy pelican and turn it into a girl pelican and take a girl pelican and make it into a boy pelican. They haven't evolved to our level yet of ingeniousness. So I see this and it restores my faith in the world, in God's world. God created a perfect world, but nature is brutal. See, at the same time, same sentence, same phrase. God created a perfect world and the world is brutal. Nature is ruthless. Nature is relentless. That's why some fools who take mescaline or smoke a lot of marijuana have, over the years, climbed into lion cages and in zoos. They think they can communicate with a lion and they get eaten. Stupid, just stupid what drugs do to people's minds. But the pelicans, as I say, they fly over the water. They're doing very well, incidentally, before I go away from my little nature talk. I live adjacent to San Francisco Bay, and sorry to disappoint you boys and girls. It's been cold as hell here for the last few weeks while you're sweltering. Oh, I know it's global warming. The answer is always it's global warming. Right. That's why Biden got COVID a second time. It was global warming, not because they gave him an antiviral drug that further diminished his natural immunity. Those idiots. Don't get me started. I may do a whole savage Sabbath on disease and natural immunity and building up your own immunity instead of taking foreign injections and drugs. So they give him an antiviral drug that basically decimated his immune system because they could peddle another drug. You got to hand it to Pfizer. They're very smart boys. Like for every question, there's another drug to sell or another vaccine to sell. Well, you could say the preachers sell God. They made a fortune off the Bible. There are people in radio like Mark Levin. I'll mention it now. I'm not going to hide it. This man has made more money off the U.S. Constitution than all the founding fathers. Go figure that out. How is that possible? How can a man make more money off the U.S. Constitution? There's an ingeniousness to that. It's the same as the false prophets who use the Bible for profit. So I'm not going to use the Bible for profit because I'm not a prophet and I don't intend to profit, and there's no cost for this sermon. Incidentally, I'm not leading you to subscribe or pay for anything, but you do have to do something at the end of this, which is make a donation to your favorite charity. Not 1 penny to me. I don't want it. I don't want it. Make a donation to your favorite charity if you like what I'm doing today. I don't know how long this is going to be. I could end it right now. I could keep going right now. I haven't even gotten to the 10 Commandments. The reason I brought them out for you is because I attest that once the 10 Commandments were removed from our schoolrooms by the evil communists in the anti-American ACLU, once the 10 Commandments were removed by coming up with the false idea of the separation of church and state, it didn't mean destroy religion, which they have done, and replaced it with transgenderism as their new religion. Their new religion is a combination of communism, anarchism, and transgenderism all combined in one. So the day that kids drift off in school, here's my point. I was a dreamer in school. I couldn't focus that much on what the teacher was talking about. Today, they would have given me a drug and I wouldn't have been the great man that I am today. I wouldn't have written these 30 books. I wouldn't have done these 26 years of brilliant radio shows. I wouldn't still be performing with more fluidity than most people 15 to 25 years old, certainly more than our president, who unfortunately should be in an old age home. So I grew up a long time ago in school, and they had the 10 Commandments on the wall. Who paid attention to it? I wasn't raised in a religious home, but kids' minds drift. As I said, if I would meet today, they'd give me a drug and turn me into some zombie. Ritalin, what else they would put you on, those monsters, those child sadistic, those sadists, those killers of children's minds, from Ritalin, you name it. So you look at this stuff on the wall. Who would pay attention to it? A kid doesn't really focus on it unless he's in a religious school, but you see the statements and they go in your head subliminally. Like today, they tell you that if you're a boy, you should consider being a girl. And if you're a girl, you should sing a song and become a boy. And that's their new religion. See, but they can teach you in school with their dirty, filthy, disgusting CRT books. But you can't teach this. These sick people, these devils. So you'd see this on the wall. And maybe some of them would stick in your mind, like, thou shalt not kill. Actually, the actual biblical translation is thou shalt not murder. Hebrew word is for murder, not kill. It took me 40 years, 50 years to learn that. Because I had to think, if you can't kill, how can you go to war to defend your nation? If you can't kill, how can you kill someone who's trying to kill you or your family? So it's the wrong interpretation. It's thou shalt not murder. It's different than thou shalt not kill. That's a whole thing for another day. But if you see things like thou shalt not steal, boys and girls, honor thy father and thy mother, you remember those things. You remember the basic stuff. 10 things, even though the religious Jews thinks there's 333 commandments. Let us say these 10 are the big ones. So kid sees these, and if he's about to, let's say, clip something out of a bodega, like some gum or something, maybe if that dumb animal remembered thou shalt not steal from his schoolroom, he wouldn't have robbed the gum. Or he goes in a bodega and he wants to beat up the owner to steal his money. Maybe if the evil bastard had seen thou shalt not kill, maybe the evil bastard wouldn't have killed that bodega owner. Maybe he wouldn't be the animal he is today. Get it? Maybe it would have gone in his head. So you take God out of the schools, and they say we're not doing it because we're anti-religion, but they were, because they wanted to replace the fundamentals of Western civilization with the new fundamentals of Western civilization, which is perversity. And never forget what I taught you 40, I was in radio 26 years. I must have written it before. Diversity is a code word for perversity. I'm pretty good at my Orwellian. Diversity is perversity. Every time you hear the word diversity, they're selling you perversity. Never forget that. Perverse has a big universe around it. Okay, so let's move on from our 10 commandments because I think we've done enough of that. Here's another one. Honor thy father and thy mother. What does that mean? What if your fathers eat bad to you? What if your mother beat you? Mine didn't, but what if... I once did a show on evil mothers on radio. You may remember it. Some of you may be my fans from radio. I had people call with stories about what their mother did to them as kids. Nobody could believe it. One said I had a Sicilian mother from Brooklyn and she used to beat me with an electric cord over the hands. Another one said the father beat me with a strap every time I came home. I couldn't believe these stories. How can you honor that kind of mother and father? It turns you into a bitter soul inside, a hateful, murderous soul if you're not careful. Usually you become a homicidal maniac if you have a father or mother like that. You want to hurt things because you were hurt. So how do you overcome it? You ask mob guys who found Jesus, guys who were murderers who became religious men, what happened to them and how they found God and how it changed them inside, how the softness within them was able to emerge and they were able to stop hurting people and killing people and stealing from people and conniving people, unlike our Congress today, who would burn a nation to the ground for $1. If they can make another dollar off another tank or weapon that they sell, they'll burn a nation to the ground. That's what we have running the country today. Both sides of the aisle. Don't make this partisan. It's so corrupt, it's frightening. I've been around a while. I've never seen this. And you say, well, it's the same as it's always been. No, no, sir. This is worse than it's ever been. It's not because we're seeing it more, because there's worse people now in higher places than ever in American history. It's never been this bad. There's a ton of reasons. Again, it's for another time. So we've touched on the Ten Commandments. We've touched on amulets. We've touched on how people try to find God and meaning through books. And they read the book, and oh yeah, I'll take mescaline, I'll be like Huxley, and I'll see God. And they wind up in a psych ward, or they wind up in Berkeley blowing bubbles in the street until they drop dead in the gutter. I've seen it all. I've seen everything happen you can imagine. So this year, let me show you something else. You know, years ago, I wrote a book called God, Faith, and Reason, and I wrote it, my publisher, my great publisher, Kate Hartson, she wanted me to do another best-selling book because she knew it would be, whether it's Stop the Coming Civil War or one of those series for the books at that time. I said, I don't want to do them anymore. Unless you'll publish my God book, I won't do them. So she said, okay, publish your God book. So I wrote this book, God, Faith, and Reason. It actually did quite well. And what it is a snapshots of God. I've never met God. I'm not Jimmy Carter. I never saw him in a robe in my living room. Anytime anyone says they saw God, you better run as fast as you can, like from a burning theater. So I saw glimpses of God here and there. And it opens with an interesting little story, which again, this is a whole show. It's about a little boy in the streets of the Bronx running after a newspaper. It was a Jewish newspaper blowing down the street in the wind. I must have been 5 years old. It was on Longfellow Avenue. I didn't read any of that Yiddish. I couldn't read those words. I didn't know what they meant, but I thought they were holy words because it was in a Hebrew script, or so a kid doesn't know. So I thought it was God's word blowing down the street, and I ran down the street picking up these newspapers. I thought it was God's word blowing away. And I grabbed them and bunched them up, brought them home, and the family laughed at me, patted me on the head. Silly boy. Your children shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. You could say I've been a visionary since I'm a little boy, and I was selected by God to be here with you right now. There has to be a reason. There must be a reason I am still alive, and he could take me this second. It wouldn't matter. What I'm saying to you is still true. My poor father died at 57. His father died at 49. The father in Europe, I grasped at straws when I realized I had inherited this cardiac thing. So I said, well, what about the great-grandfather in Russia, or in Ukraine? He must have lived long. They said, no, I'm sorry, he died at 39 of a heart attack. I've always had like a gun to my head. So it drove me crazy. I always thought my next breath was my last breath. And so I studied nutrition. I studied herbal medicine. I've gone to strange places on earth that a person from my background shouldn't have gone to. Again, seeking answers, because there is no answer. I'm a searcher. And then recently, again, not being religious, I discovered a part of my heritage that I thought was the stupidest thing I ever saw on the planet. These little black boxes with handwritten scrolls inside of them called tefillin that religious Jews put on their heads. Say, what the hell is that stuff? What are you doing? You put one on your head, and then you put one on your arm. And I start to read about it, and it says, by tying your arm and putting this on your head, you're unifying the animal within you, the brain within you, the heart within you, in service to God. You're getting a unification to God. So I said, that makes sense to me. That's really incredible. So again, that's a topic for a religious show, not for this show. So I said, what is in these little black boxes? Exodus, for those of you who are Christian, you'll find in these boxes handwritten scrolls from Exodus 13, 1 through 10, and 11 through 16, and Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9, 11, 12 through 21. These are phrases. And you shall tie them upon thy head. You're commanded by God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day, and press them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a frontlet between your eyes. I didn't know what this meant. I thought it was kind of, as an anthropologist at one point in my careers, I thought it was very interesting and archaic. But what do these verses mean? Why would anyone do a thing like this? I always thought it was weird. I never laugh at people's religious rituals, whether it's in Brooklyn or in Beirut. But there's a story to go with this. Many years ago, the great Lubavitcher rabbi advised the world-famous sculptor Jacques Lifshitz, I know it's a funny name, laugh at the name now, to start wearing tefillin and to pray every morning. So the sculptor subsequently described the effects of these acts on his life. He said, I pray every morning. It is of great help to me. First of all, it puts me together with all my people. I am with them, and I am near to the Lord, the Almighty. I speak with him. I cannot make my prayers individual, but I speak to him. He gives me strength for the day. I could not live anymore without it. There are stories that even in Hitler's death camps in the Holocaust, Jews managed to smuggle tefillin into Nazi concentration camps and put them on each morning. It gave them strength. And as far as I am concerned, this gives me strength. So you could say this is a new ritual or a new amulet, an amulet no different than this from the Yemenites, an amulet no different than this figure carved by a Mesoamerican genius sculptor, God knows how many years ago, part of my vast collection of ethnographic art. Or you could say it's closer than that because it ties us into the foundation of the United States of America, this nation, founded by religious pilgrims. I've told you already, every nation on earth was founded in blood. So leave me out of that left-wing drivel that we're an evil nation. Just leave me out of it. The greatest nation on the planet. It was until this happened, until this left-wing communism took over this country. And by the way, we don't know where this ends yet. They might win. We might have it worse. It could be worse than Venezuela or Cuba when they get through with us here. I saw a story. I was shocked by what they're doing in England. They arrested a 65-year-old war veteran because he posted something on Facebook saying he will not bow down to the gods of diversity and say that it's good to convert a child into transgenderism. The police in England went to his house and arrested him. And he started yelling at them. What are you, the Stasi? Are you the Nazis that we fought against? Of course they are. Of course they are. The diversity police are the Nazis of America. Some of you know that, and some of you will never know it. Those who know will always know, and those who won't will never. I wrote that when I was 18 years old. Let me put on this little sign for you. Normally I put it on when I'm on the air. There, it should have been on, but there we go. That's the setting. I finally am warming up, but I'm going to end it very soon because I've opened up the doors of your perception to my perceptions. And where I go with this is to be determined. I think this is enough for the first savage Sabbath. Depending upon the reactions on my social media at A Savage Nation on Twitter or my Facebook account or Instagram or my YouTube channel, depending upon what you want, I'll see if I do this again. This could be the first and only one, or it could be one every week at a certain time. There's so much more I want to tell you. God, I don't know where to begin and I don't know where to end. That's the whole point of it. You know, for years on my radio show, those of you who follow me on radio for those 26 years know that I said I had a Bible that I quoted from readily. Here, I'm not a talk show host who makes things up just for effect. See my Bible? See all the little yellow tabs? I didn't put them in this morning. There's so many yellow tabs, I may as well remove them all. So what value does this Bible have? You know, I see movies of, you see prisoners in cells, and I'm sure maybe one of you will be I don't think they have iPhones, but I don't know, maybe someone in prison can see this somehow legally. Actually, if you go on your TV and you say, you search for Michael Savage on YouTube, you'll find my YouTube channel and this will be on it. They bury it as best they can because it doesn't match the agenda. So here, I have a little yellow tab, a still small voice. Where did that come from? You know, some of the great books of our time, going back to Shakespeare at the very least, derive from the wisdom of the Bible. And some of the great titles of our time, whether it be some of the great writers I have known, have derived their titles and their inspiration from the Bible. Whether it be John Steinbeck or Ernest Hemingway, look at their titles. The Sun Also Rises from the Bible. The Winter of Our Discontent from the Bible. Shakespeare, filled with biblical wisdom through the ages. Great artists know that, whether they be writers, sculptors. They know that there's something deeper than them, there's something bigger than them, and there's some deeper meaning to it all. So let's look together at a still small voice, which I searched for one day and found. I didn't even know what it came from. Here it is. So it's in the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 19, which begins with, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and with all how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. And we go on, and we come to this little line, on and on and on, and God talks to Elijah, and the Lord says this, and then after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire, a still small voice, period. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him and said, What doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. That may explain in part why America is dying, because your prophets have been slain, whether in person or on social media or on the media itself. Your prophets are being slain. Never forget what I have just said to you. A still small voice, and I may call this sermon, after 38 long, beautiful minutes with you, a still small voice. This is Michael Savage saying thank you very much for listening. It will be on my YouTube channel. It will be on, I'll link it on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And I will try to do these regularly not if the Spirit moves me, if you know who moves me. If God says to me, you did a good job today, I want you to do another one next week, Sunday around the same time, or I want you to shift it to Saturday at a certain time, I'll be back. If not, this is the one and only Savage Sabbath sermon that you've all been waiting for. God bless you. Be well. Thank you for listening.